the term chatbot is kind of, there's some negative connotations to it, but at the end of the day, it's an automation tool that is leveraging conversational interfaces to capture this information.
Gotcha.
So I think it started off as chatbot, and we try to kind of reframe the conversation around, automation and conversations and conversation interfaces.
Welcome to the Bourbon Friday Show, where every Friday we take a short break, try a new bourbon, and meet someone awesome from the St. Louis startup scene. I'm your host, Nick Niehaus, and today I'm interviewing Michael Lamb, who is the president and co-founder of NativeMsg. So Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So why don't we just start with, what is NativeMsg?
So NativeMsg is a platform for automating business functions across messaging channels. And those messaging channels could be over-the-top messaging channels like Facebook Messenger or Twitter or WhatsApp, Skype, Slack.
Cool.
Could also be the native messaging channel on a device, your SMS, MMS inbox on your device.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then also two of the channels that we're really excited about and have started really exploring this year a lot more are RCS, which stands for Rich Communication Services.
Okay.
And it is really the next generation of text messaging. And then
really?
the other channel that we're very excited about is called Conversational Display Ads. And it's the ability to bring a display ad on a web page to life by incorporating conversational elements to it.
Really? Okay, interesting. There's a lot there, so we'll try to go one at a time maybe.
Yep.
And I've been looking forward to talking about this for a while since we first met, because I'm all into marketing. Marketing's my thing.
Yep.
There sounds like a lot of opportunities here. So let's kind of start back at the beginning. We're talking about automating these processes, right?
Yep.
So give me a couple of maybe case studies. What are some situations where you guys are able to help a business automate some of their communication?
Sure. So typically what businesses a lot of times are doing from a lead generation perspective is they're creating ads. Those ads are then pointing to landing pages, and then those landing pages are then capturing information.
Sure.
And those are using what I would call kind of the traditional web look and feel, where there's form fields, there's a picture, there's a big call to action. And there's not really any kind of engaging participatory components to it at all.
Sure. Yep.
So leveraging our platform, those same ads can point to Facebook Messenger, where an automation can capture a first name, a last name, and an email address. They could point to a landing page that has a conversational interface built into it, where someone is actually having a conversation very similar to having a conversation in text messaging, where you have bubbles coming back and forth.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's much more engaging, much more participatory, and the conversions generally are much higher.
Oh, I bet, yeah. So is this something, I think when we get into this, are we talking about like a chat bot? Is that how you would describe this, or is it something similar?
The term chatbot is kind of, there's some negative connotations to it, but at the end of the day, it's an automation tool that is leveraging conversational interfaces to capture this information.
Gotcha.
So I think it started off as chatbot, and we try to kind of reframe the conversation around automation and conversations and conversation interfaces, because people are much more comfortable with that than, if you ask somebody if they want to talk to a chatbot, myself included, it's no. But if you, say to somebody, hey, I've created this platform and this interface that allows you to interact in any channel that you want on your schedule to be able to get from point A to point B on your customer journey, does that sound good? Most people would say yes.
Yeah. And I think that's where, I've had a lot of conversations with people about this as well, where you hear the word chatbot and I think they think like, oh, I'm gonna get on there and I'm gonna start chatting with what I think is a person, and I'm gonna ask a question and I'm gonna get a confusing answer, and I'm gonna start,
What's your favorite Chinese food? What's your favorite Star Wars movie? The reality is a lot of that is very, very far away, and it's way, way down the road. So the real kind of concepts of AI that are built into our platform are more natural language processing. So it's understanding what someone is typing into the platform and then responding appropriately, but in a very structured, in the guardrails kind of a format. This isn't
and that's the
very
part.
free-flowing and opening where I'm, you're not talking to a person, quote unquote. You're going from point A to point B in your preferred channel so that you can resolve an issue, get a question answered, find out where your package is, sign up for something, whatever it might be. So they're very structured types of interactions versus this massive, big kind of conversational concept.
Gotcha, and that's what makes it work, right? Because you're not just leaving it completely open-ended. I remember there was a case maybe a couple years ago where Microsoft tried to create a chatbot on Twitter.
Yep.
And started saying some pretty bad things.
And then you get
quickly.
people that know how it works, and they can enter things in that get it to respond. And what we always try to explain to people is that the whole concept of real conversational AI and having a conversation inside of a messaging channel, like I said previously, is pretty far down the road.
Sure, yeah.
So let's, kind of take that off the table. But what are the top 3 reasons your customers reach out to you from a customer service and support standpoint? So open that up in these messaging channels and allow customers to interact in those channels versus forcing them into the voice channel or forcing them into the email channel.
Interesting. Okay. So I know we talked a lot about customer-facing stuff. I know this is also pretty useful internally with employees.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about maybe a case study there in that side of things.
So some of the things that are happening from that standpoint are employee onboarding, different use cases with healthcare, people wanting to find out what their HR, different things around HR. How many vacation days do I have left?
Oh, interesting.
How many sick days do I have left? All of those kinds of different things, because all of this data exists somewhere.
Yeah.
The issue is it hasn't been opened up so that you can gain access to it in different channels. And usually I have to go to the person to be able to go through them, and then they type it into the computer and then give me the answer.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to explain to people that person doesn't really have to type that in. I can gain access to that myself.
Interesting.
So that I can, almost self-service a lot of this, information and discovery on my own time and in the channels I want to do it in.
Yeah.
So then the other piece comes up, well, what about that person and that person who's doing that, and that's their job to do that. And my response would be, if you ask them if they enjoyed that part of their job, they would say no, and they'd love for it to be automated. So it's really about taking those employees that are doing those kind of mundane types of tasks, taking those off their plate and allowing them to do more value-driven tasks inside of the organization to really push the organization further down the road. Because, even with making a phone call, before you even make that phone call to your bank to get that charge reversed, that starts off bad. You get to the person, and then that person is simply pressing a button. So why not let me press that button?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great point.
That's the idea.
There's a lot of places where I would imagine that person is essentially just an unnecessary bottleneck, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But there's this idea, and it's starting to change a lot inside of companies and brands, that those individuals don't need to be there. But for a long period of time, they felt like they had to be there.
Yeah.
And now we all have smartphones. We all have access to any piece of information that we could ever possibly think of through Google. And then you think about Amazon, and you think about all of these experiences that we're used to, that all of these companies have created and developed. And we as consumers are used to that. Now we're waiting for those companies and brands to catch up with those experiences.
Yeah.
And again, a small business is never going to be a Google, but they can open up, appointment rescheduling inside of text messaging and allow someone to reschedule an appointment versus having to call a doctor's office.
All right. Well, yeah.
Things like that.
Right there, you've already got me sold, because that sounds great.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I wanted to take a step back to the original description, right? There's a lot to talk about there. One thing you also mentioned was display ads that can open up a chat conversation, which I think is really interesting, because a lot of cases, traditional display ads have gotten pretty stale, and a lot of people aren't paying a lot of attention to them anymore, right?
Wallpaper, as they're referred to a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly, right? So what does that look like? How does it work, right? Because I can see, as a marketer, like, that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah. So, one idea around the conversational display, really the idea is to take this conversational interface and integrate it into the ad unit itself. So the ad unit comes to life. It's not just a static image that's sitting on that page. So traditionally, if you're doing a lead generation program, you're going to create an image, come up with some fancy copy, make the copy pulsate or whatever to try to get somebody's attention.
Look at it,
and they're going to click on it, and it's going to take them to a landing page. Once they get to that landing page, as we talked about before, forms, text boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, all kind of static web as we're used to. So the whole idea is that the individual never has to leave the page where the ad is. And when that user clicks on that ad, that begins the conversation. And then it says, hey, glad to see you're interested in, automobile insurance. Before we get started, can I get your first name? Michael. Hey, Michael, I'm happy to answer any questions for you about automobile insurance. And then there are predefined responses that are, you know, 1 car, 2 car, 3 car. I have 2 cars. So you have this whole customer journey that you develop that lives inside of the ad and walks somebody through that process that would be on that landing page.
Yeah.
But it all happens inside of the ad. And then at the end, I can say, if you want to provide me with your email address, I can send you an email. If you give me your cell phone number, I can send you a text message.
Yeah.
And all of that happens on the page inside of that ad unit, and that person never leaves the page.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you're cutting out a lot of steps there, which
Tons of
definitely
steps.
increases conversions, right?
But you're also creating an ad unit that is much more engaging and much more compelling, because when we move into a conversational interface, we have those bubbles, those messaging bubbles.
Uh-huh.
And we're all used to that on our phone and text messaging, that if that bubble comes back, I'm communicating with this person. So
Sure.
there's a back and forth dialogue that keeps that user engaged inside of that ad unit.
Yeah, which is a great point.
Yep.
We've worked a little bit with some rudimentary chatbots. And that's one thing, you know, that I've noticed is that by providing, first of all, you mentioned giving them options, right?
Yep.
So it's not a free,
Nope.
they can't just say whatever they want, which you mentioned earlier, right? So you give them specific choices they can pick from, and then it makes it conversational, right? So you're
Correct.
able, what I've seen is you're able to get a lot more information from people versus like a form, right? Because
Correct.
if you put 10 fields on a form, nobody's going to complete that form,
No.
right?
No,
You
they
ask
don't.
10 questions in a row that have 3 buttons below each one, like they will finish
They're
that
gonna
in
click
2
them all.
minutes, right?
Right.
And even if they stop at some point, you've collected still most of that information, right? So there's still a
Right.
partial lead developed.
And now you know exactly, and also from a segmentation and from a data standpoint, even if they don't go through, like you said, all 10 steps, and they do 7, you're still able to capture a lot of information, because leveraging our platform, I know everything they click on. I know how much time
Wow.
they spend. I really know if your ads are driving engagement or not, versus
Cool.
just a click.
Yeah, which is very useful.
Yep.
Yeah, takes
And
a
that's
definite
something
step
that we
further.
are in the process of piloting right now, and we're getting ready to do a large program for Mother's Day.
Okay.
So more to come on that.
All right, very cool.
Yep.
Well, one more thing from the beginning to get back to is
Yep.
RCS. So I want
Yep.
to talk about that a little bit because that's pretty exciting. So what is RCS and how does that play a role in all this?
Sure. So RCS is Rich Communication Services. And what Rich Communication Services is it is a protocol that was developed by the GSMA,
Okay.
which is basically the new standard for native text messaging on a device.
Okay.
So inside of the messaging channel on your device, you will have SMS, you will have MMS, and now you will also have RCS.
Okay.
So think of RCS as taking the concept of a chatbot in Facebook Messenger or any of the other channels where they exist and building that into the native text messaging channel
Oh, wow.
on your phone.
Okay.
So you're also going to be able to pull in a lot of app functionality into that channel as
Really?
well, because you're pulling in rich media, you're pulling in suggested responses, suggested replies, location. You can now do payments. You can start to do a multitude of other things
Yeah.
aside from just a text bubble and a picture. Now you've really created this whole environment where someone can really interact, get access to, where is their package, do lead generation, shopping, e-commerce,
Wow.
travel. I'm trying to think of some of the ones that are out there, like, pharmacy, do refill prescriptions.
Really?
But all of that exists inside of the text messaging app on your
Existing.
phone.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go outside into the other apps on your device. All of it can happen inside of that one app.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think this is exciting too because everyone has the text messaging app on their phone already, right?
And everybody spends most of their time inside of the text messaging app. So there's a term called app fatigue,
Yeah.
where all of the devices we have, all of the tablets, all of the phones are all app-based. And until somebody comes up with a different format, they're always going to be app-based.
Sure.
But the reality is 85% of our time is spent in 5 different apps.
Wow,
And
really?
1 or 2 of those is always messaging.
Yeah.
So if you're out and you're trying to develop this new app experience and trying to get people to download it and interact with it, and you can do a lot of the same things inside of an app that they're already using, it makes more sense to pay more attention to
Yeah.
where they're already spending their time.
Absolutely.
Go to where the users are. Go to where the eyeballs are. That's why everybody advertises on Facebook
Yep.
and Instagram and all of these other apps, because that's where everybody
people are.
is.
Absolutely.
But everybody truly is in the text messaging application, all the time.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that's exciting about that too is when you build a list of phone numbers to text with people, you own that communication, right? Versus
Correct.
if you build a list of people on Facebook or one of these other platforms, technically they own that, and at any point they could change the rules. I know when they started decreasing reach on Facebook business pages, it was this
Yep.
huge deal. I was like, hey, they own the platform, right? They want to make more money or they want to change user experience, they can do it, right?
Absolutely. And it's a great point where a lot of companies are starting to move away from third-party data to first-party data. And a lot of the tools that we have developed allow these companies and brands to really capture all of this first-party data in their own channels, versus their paid or however you would define Facebook and Twitter and all of those other channels that are out there.
Very cool.
But it's absolutely correct. There is no download all of my contact information on Facebook button.
No, yeah, they own that.
It just doesn't exist.
Probably never will, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, so tell me a little bit about the platform. So if a business wants to start utilizing this, how do they work with NativeMsg to implement this in their company?
Sure. So we basically start off with them and try to understand what the use cases are that they're looking to automate from a business function standpoint. And if they haven't really thought through a lot of that, we can certainly help them with that and walk them through how to think about different use cases that would make sense to move into these messaging channels. And then there is what we refer to as the digital customer journey or digital customer experience, which is then developed and kind of flushed out. Our customer can then build that inside of the platform themselves. We can build that for them. We have an entire API that can be used by developers to build all of that out. And then once that's built out, then that lives and exists inside of the NativeMsg platform. And we host and manage that entire experience, going back and forth between the channel that it's integrated in and our tool. But because of the API, if there are existing platforms that the customers are already using for customer service and support or managing conversations in messaging channels, it can be pushed out there also. So it's really, it's a very flexible platform from the standpoint of we really work with our customers and their existing infrastructure, so they don't really have to change what they're doing. And we are really a independent messaging layer that sits on top of everything they're doing, and we're just passing information back and forth.
Awesome. Yeah. Very easy. I like it.
We try. I make it sound easy, and there's work obviously
behind the scenes
involved to it.
Easy,
right. But the reality is, once you get it up and running, and once things are moving, then it's a very standard process, and it's a very streamlined, simple process.
Very cool. All right. Well, if somebody wants to get in touch or they want to hire you guys, how should they go about doing that?
You can go to nativemsg.com. Which is NativeMsg.com. Or you can reach us at 888-566-2848. Or if you want to send me an email directly, you can reach me at mlamb@nativemsg.com.
Cool. Perfect. Love it.
Yeah.
So we got a couple minutes left. We're going to invite Eric, who's the founder of Bourbon Friday. And he's going to start off by introducing what we're sipping on today. So what do we got here, Eric?
So we are drinking Bulleit bourbon. And the reason Bulleit is here is not so much about Bulleit, but the company that owns Bulleit, which is Diageo. Diageo, a couple of years back, actually created the first chatbot based around whiskey.
Really?
Specifically, it was for Scotch. And if you're a Scotch drinker, you know Scotch varies a lot more in flavor than bourbon does. So it probably would have saved me a lot of money over time trying different Scotches.
Fair enough,
there's whole sections of Scotland that I'm like, nope, not for me. So they built this chatbot. I think it's called the Whiskey Matcher. And I also thought it'd be a good thing because Diageo also owns another brand. A lot of it's going to be drank this weekend, which is Guinness.
Oh, there you go. All right. Nice tie-in. Good timing and relevant to the guests here. It's a double whammy this week. I love it.
Very nice.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric, as always, for joining us. Michael, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate
My pleasure.
it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Eric.
And, for those of you viewing, obviously, thanks for tuning in. As every single Friday, we are here at Kovo at 4:30. So thank you so much to Kovo. Thank you to EQ for streaming our show every single week. And I'd also like to thank Vanessa Lobo, my business partner at Connect Marketing, for taking care of the production. Thanks for tuning in, and please join us again next Friday.
Hey, thanks for watching. We truly hope you enjoyed it. Please like and share this episode. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. To stay up to date, follow us on social. We are at Bourbon Fridays on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. See you next time.